an insurance agent. We're a title insurance agent. We have two underwriters that we work with. They're the ones that actually provide the insurance policy. And there's two types of policies. There's two types of title insurance policies. There is a lender policy and an owner's policy. Those are the two types of policies that are issued to a buyer at closing. All right, and so the lender policy, as the name infers, protects the lender. That only protects the lender in the event the lender needs to take title to the property. So the lender policy is completely separate from the owner's policy. Again, the lender's policy is issued to the lender. The buyer pays the premium, but it is required by all mortgage lenders to have a title insurance policy when they're issuing a new loan. And again, that just protects the lender in the event they have to foreclose and take title. They want to make sure that they have the ability to sell the property if that process takes place. And so they require a title insurance policy to protect their interest. The owner's policy, which is a separate policy, protects the owners in case there's any title issue that may rise up while they are the owners of the property. Like I said, the lender policy is required, and that's the bulk of the premium on the CD is the lender policy. And then what we do is we just issue a simultaneous policy for the owners. And usually depends on the loan amount and the sales price, but usually the difference between just a straight up lenders and a simultaneous owners lenders is really only a couple $100 in most cases. Now, the owner's policy is optional. As I mentioned earlier, the lender policy is required. We can't get away from that, but the owner's policy is optional. But like I said, the additional $200 to protect their title is, in our opinion, well worth it. Title insurance.
Question for you, which I think would be super neat, is what are some examples of why someone would want title insurance in case buyers are asking? What does that protect them? Obviously, the lender side protects the lender so that they can acquire the title if they need to, but why would an owner want it as well? Like some examples would be super neat.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. So owner's policy protects the owners. The title insurance, what it's really doing is protecting hidden title hazards that may already exist in the chain of title. Okay. So what we do is we thoroughly research the title to the property through the county records. That's where all the documents are recorded that affect the title to the real estate. It's all held at the county. And so we research those documents, and sometimes we have to go back 40 years. So when you have a buyer that's buying a piece of real estate, in some cases, we have to research all the documents that have been recorded against that real estate for the last 40 years. And we examine those documents and make sure basically, that they were signed correctly and that maybe we're not missing a signature, or that certain mortgages or other liens have been satisfied correctly and they're not still somehow a lien on the property. So we do a thorough research of the county records, but in some cases there are hidden errors or hidden hazards in the title that already exist. So, and that's one important part too with title insurance. It's a little bit different from most insurance that's out there. Title insurance actually covers risk that goes backwards in time. So it's looking at the transactions that affected the real estate in the past, where most insurance covers you going forward, right? Like your car insurance, you get car insurance today that protects you from today going forward. Title insurance goes backwards. Okay. And so some examples of why an owner may want to get an owner's title policy, again, are to protect themselves against hidden hazards. One example could be a forgery. So, let's just say there was a document that was, it's signed, it's notarized, it's recorded, and we don't verify signatures in notarized documents, right? So, I mean, if it's signed, notarized, and recorded, it's taken at face value. Okay. There have been situations where, documents have been forged. Someone's going through a nasty divorce or something and they're not getting along, and someone wants to, sell the property without the other person knowing, something like that. We've seen that. That's happened before. Another one that we had was an heir to the estate. So a person had passed away, they were entitled by themselves, and one of the, I believe it was a son, a long lost son, was living in California, who was, I don't know what, but estranged from his family or whatever, and he was not named in the will by the dad. And so the closing went through, a year goes by, and this long lost son comes forward and says, I have an interest in that house. I never got my money on the sale of the estate. And so now it's the new owners. I know it doesn't seem right or fair. I mean, the new owner has nothing to do with this, but it's the real estate that's in contention. And now that buyer would have to work through those issues on their own if they did not have an owner's title policy. If they had an owner's title insurance policy, the title insurance company would defend them and basically negotiate, represent them in court, because it would probably be a lawsuit, and also pay any amount that may be awarded. So those are some of the examples of how an owner's policy can protect the owner. And again, these are hidden title errors that you could never pick out through your examination. Okay. We also had one where there was a divorce situation where a person bought the house as single, because it's one to buy, two to sell, right? So he buys the house as a single person, gets married, gets divorced. The wife was never added to title. That's one thing when you do get married, you should do a quitclaim deed and add the spouse onto the title to protect their interests. But gets married, gets divorced. It was an ugly divorce. The wife was awarded money, but the husband sold the property by himself because he's single now. She was never in title. He's single now, so he deeded out as a single person, which is correct. And then some time went by and that wife came forward and the title insurance policy actually paid out a claim in that case, and represented the new owners, and everything was handled how it should have been. And the owners were very happy that they paid $200 for an owner's title insurance policy when they bought the property. So those are just some examples, albeit it doesn't happen every day. These are rare occasions, but the price to pay so you can sleep at night and have good title to your property. I mean, one phone call to an attorney is $200, and so, like I said, the bulk of the premium is for the lender. When we do a simultaneous policy, it's usually right around $200 for the owner's policy.
Yeah, and especially in the world we're in now, I mean, someone's claiming property rights doesn't even have to be legit, but you still have to defend yourself. So
Right.
you just never know. And just because it's wrong, it doesn't matter in the world we live in now.
Right.
You still have to pay a ton of money to defend yourself. So
That's right. I
what
mean, anyone can sue anyone, right? I mean,
exactly?
anyone can sue someone, and now you have to answer to that.
Yep. So what do you
You know,
say when? Uh, what do you recommend agents say when buyer client asks advice on title insurance policy?
yeah, good question. Really, I would always 100% of the time recommend they get an owner's title policy. I mean, you
Copy
can be
that.
upfront with them and let them know it's optional, but in your expert opinion, you would recommend that they always get an owner's title policy. Okay, because some of it can get really complicated on the coverage that an owner's policy will cover. And you never want to be, as an agent, put in a position where, well, my agent said it was optional and I didn't really need it.
Yeah.
Because then what happens if something comes up down the road, the buyer just says, well, if I, you didn't really explain it to me that well, and if I knew it covered that, of course I would have gotten it. You know what I mean? So always recommend it. And you can let them know it's optional, but always highly recommended. And if they flat out say they don't want it, that is fine. They still need to purchase a lender's policy through us. If there's a loan, I mean, if it's cash, they don't need any title insurance policy really. And then we have people that do that, and it's rare that happens, but we do have people that will sign a statement to say they understand we offered them an owner's title policy and they decline and they assume any sort of the risks. And again, don't get me wrong, when we do our exam, we're eliminating all those risks. That's why we call for, at a closing, that's why we call from a deed from a husband and wife, and we call for a payoff on a mortgage lien, and we call for a release of a judgment, and we check the property taxes and all that. So we're eliminating all that stuff along the way. That's how we're able to issue the policy. But again, it's these hidden title hazards that you could never pick up that are out there.
I like it. And
yeah.
I would imagine you or your closers or Ashley, for example, would be willing to answer any specific questions of title insurance, since we're not experts.
Yes,
if
absolutely.
Our clients, yeah. So just recommend it like a buyer's inspection, right? You always want to recommend it. But, when it comes to specific questions on what it covers or doesn't cover, that's definitely a question for the title company, I would imagine.
Yes, for sure.
At least for me, I'm definitely not an expert.
Yeah. So, I mean, for you guys in your business and with being real estate agents, I mean, we want to partner with you. And so we want to be another resource for you to provide, that type of information.
Awesome.
So by all means, reach out, email, text, call, whatever. We're here for you.
Perfect. Looks like Lizzie has a question.
I don't have a question, Neil, but what I have is a recommendation. If people seem reluctant to buy the title insurance at the time of closing, I always point out to them that there is a certain time period after the closing where you can still buy at the price that was offered. Is that not correct?
No, that is correct. That is
yes,
correct.
And then what I say to them, I also then will send them a little note after the closing and say, your time is drawing near, that this will not be an option. You might want to consider it now.
Yeah.
Feel more secure in your new home, kind of thing.
And the time period for that is 60 days. Okay.
Right. So,
if it gets beyond that, then we have to research the title and do further research to make sure that nothing else has come on the title.
Right. And that's how I would do that, because that way we've recommended it, we've offered it, we've re-offered it at the closing, And we've also given them an option to extend their opportunity. So once you have all of that done, I think you've really accomplished pretty much what you need to.
I like that.
I
And
would agree.
is there more than one, and maybe you mentioned it, but is there more than one owner's policy you can get? Isn't there like two to choose
Yeah,
from
there
or
are.
something? Or is
Yeah.
there a bunch?
There's basically two. There's an
Got it.
enhanced policy, which costs a little bit more, and kind of is kind of a one-off situation where we look at the certain title and the chain of title, whether or not the enhanced policy can be issued. We don't do too many enhanced policies. We don't really think there's a real need for that. It costs more, and the standard Alta policy, which was updated in 2015, is a good policy, and
Awesome.
it covers a lot of the issues that are common in real estate.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we have some questions here in chat.
Okay.
What doesn't an owner's title insurance policy cover?
Well, that's a good question. Well, that's more of a real legal question, but it covers. It does not cover liens that are not of record. So if everything needs to be filed with the county. So if someone gives someone a loan and they want a mortgage on the property, that document needs to be filed with the county. Okay. If it's not filed or recorded with the county, then your interest is basically out. That's a little bit up for debate. That could actually turn into a title issue, but that would be something where a policy would probably get involved in that. But documents do need to be recorded of record. Okay. It doesn't cover known errors or hazards in the property. So if someone's not disclosing, okay, if they know material facts and it's not disclosed, you can't just pretend like you didn't know. Okay. Obviously, if that did happen, a title insurance policy would kick in. But if that was discovered through a court process somehow, the title insurance policy would probably not pay that claim. But it would defend. Yeah.
And that could happen, I would imagine, changing hands through relatives or something,
Yep.
Hey, come after me after I get my proceeds, something like that.
Exactly.
But
it covers basically anyone that has that's claiming an interest in the property. And when I say an interest in a property, that is either ownership, rights, claims, security interests through a mortgage or a loan, any lien or anything that might encumber the real estate is really what it's covering.
Super good.
Yeah.
And then
that's a really good question. I haven't had that one. When you phrase it that way, what does it not cover? That's something that we don't get asked too often. It's a great question. But the standard policies are regulated. These insurance companies are regulated, and they are providing coverage for a lot of most issues that may arise. I mean, it's the issues that are going to come up are typically covered, I guess.
Awesome. And then follow up on that, lien coverage is automatically included in that as long as it's recorded.
Yes. Yep.
Figured
Lien
that.
coverage is definitely in there, and there's lots of different types of liens, right? There's mortgage liens, there's marital liens through divorces, there's judgment liens, and that could be like, you know, a credit card that didn't get paid or something. That creditor could file a judgment lien. We see those a lot. There's tax liens, you know, federal and state tax liens, mechanics liens, and mechanics liens are where someone worked on the property and didn't get paid. There's lots of different types of liens that the title insurance policy does cover.
I like it. Another question, process for closing on a home and the sellers have moved overseas. So remote closings, or are they doing like virtual closings now?
You know, we're not quite there yet. I mean, there are in some situations where you can do a virtual closing online. Some of the counties are not geared up to that quite yet. But I think that is something that's coming. You can do it in certain situations. Most title companies in town here are not there yet because it's too unique to certain, I guess, transactions in property locations and county requirements and so forth. So most title companies just aren't confident enough that it would cover. You know, the counties are quick to reject documents. You know, if something's if an I isn't dotted or a T isn't crossed, the counties have no problem rejecting those documents. And then you know, the title company is in a position where we've already closed, but we can't get documents recorded because they were rejected by the county for one reason or another. And now we have to go back to people that sometimes don't want to cooperate. And so it turns into a big mess. So title companies are very leery on making sure that the documents are correct the first time. Because it's the last thing they want to do is try and go back after the closing to try and get a signature or get a document corrected. You know, a lot of times people are more than willing to help, you know, get anything resolved, but it's just, there are certain situations where you just can't trust everyone. So title companies, just as a blanket, you know, try to get all the documents done correctly the first time. It's very important.
So how would Guardian be able to facilitate sellers that are either already overseas? I could see investors, you know, have an investment property, they're overseas.
Yep. And we have done quite a few of those. There's basically two ways that can be done. However, both ways require a signature and a notary by the person that's overseas.
Yeah.
So unless so there's basically, you could have a power of attorney where that person gives power to someone that's here to sign on their behalf. That document, that power of attorney, requires signature and notary. So unless it's already signed and notarized and hasn't expired and in possession of someone that's here, that would be easy to do it that way. But so we could get a power of attorney signed by the person that's overseas, or what we've done as well as we've actually sent documents overseas. They do have to be notarized, and sometimes that's a bit of a challenge depending on where someone is. But what we do is we typically will email the documents ahead of time to the seller. They'll have to get them signed and notarized at that location, and then they'll have to get those original documents back to us. But we've done them, you know, all over China, Africa. There's always a way to get it done. Sometimes, you know, it's a little bit of work on the client's end that's overseas. Well, I don't have a notary, or I don't have, express delivery or something like that, and we can help them with that. There's always a way to overcome it. One guy had to go to the U.S. Embassy, to have it notarized.
Crazy.
Yeah, and they've done that. But there are notaries in different countries that are acknowledged here and that work. And so, it always works out. We always get it done. But the best way to do it is just to make sure we have time to coordinate that and the logistics and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. So anything one-off like that, guys, I mean, it's every party should be privy to that as soon as that purchase agreement is sent to title, they need to know that, hey, this is a different one, right? So that they can, you don't want to know, I mean, obviously you know the day before, way before closing, but give them a chance to make it super easy for your clients.
Absolutely.
It might take a little bit of time. Who knows how far they have to go to get it notarized, or who knows? So any weird things like that, just let them know. I would imagine, Jamie, it's okay to be over explanative, like give more information than you think you need to, just so that it's super
that's such a great point, Neil. I mean, any title company, I'll just tell you, would love to have more information.
Yep.
Okay, when you guys send us the PAs, any little caveat or anything that's going on, the more information, the better. Any title company would love that.
Yep.
Yeah. So anything you can do to provide additional information is very helpful.
Very good question. And then, so one thing that I love about Guardian is a lot of my sellers have been not wanting to go to a title company. So you guys will actually do remote closings.
We do.
At the property, which is, I mean, you can't beat that service.
Yeah.
There is a fee for that, I imagine, but it's minimal.
Yeah, it's $125.
Yeah. So.
And it's a pre-signed fee.
Yeah. So pre-signed fee even at Guardian Title is the same as if it was remote?
Yes.
Copy that. Okay.
Yeah,
so that's good to know.
Yes.
And that's
I mean, it's really working out well. Pre-signing sellers. The clients love it. They got a lot moving on with closing and packing and getting the house ready and all this. And we'll send our closer right out to the house and sign the documents ahead of time. And it really works out well. It gives a lot of flexibility to not only the seller, but the buyer. And this kind of all sprung out from COVID a little bit, trying to keep people, trying to keep the group to a minimum at closing. And it's really kind of taken off where a lot of title companies are doing it, where it's just pre-signing the sellers ahead of time. And that frees up time for the buyers. Now the buyer, the buyer can pick a better time maybe that works for him. Maybe the seller, it was always a challenge to get everyone to agree to close at 2:00 on July 9th. You know what I mean? Now we've opened it way up where sellers, you guys tell us when you're ready to sign. It's got to be done ahead of time. But you pick the time and location and we'll be there. And then for the buyer, you pick the time and location that works for you. And so it's kind of worked out really well. And it provides a lot of flexibility to all the parties involved, really.
Yeah, that's a game changer for sellers, just in general, for us to know that that's possible, to be able to let them know how stress-free that can be. Like, they'll come right to your house whenever you're ready, obviously pre-closing. And sellers can sign pretty much like way early, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. As soon as we have the title commitment, and which is that's what allows the title company to issue a policy, is the title commitment. And that lays out, who's in title, what liens need to be taken care of, who needs to sign. And that's produced after the research through the county records. The title company, the buyer's title company, will produce the title commitment, and then that'll be given to the seller's title company, and the seller's title company is working off of that commitment. Okay. Once that title commitment is out, and we clear the title, then the sellers are free to sign.
I like it.
Yep. So a lot of times sellers are signing, a week, 2 weeks prior to closing. Now they're not going to get their money until the buyer signs.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay. And a lot of times they totally understand that, and will wire the funds to the seller on the day of closing. It's a same day wire transfer, hits their account same day, good funds right away. That's what's nice about a wire, and a lot of sellers really like that. Now buyers can't pre-sign. They have, because they're working with a lender usually, or if it's cash, there's really no point in pre-signing a cash deal. But on a buy side with a mortgage company involved, you can't pre-sign. Those documents are date sensitive and need to be signed on the date that they're issued. But sellers, you can pre-sign all day.
I like it. Super good info. And then you will, let's say, we have a lot of agents that do a lot of business here. So let's say you're representing the buyer and seller, you can do both, I would imagine, correct, James?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
So
we love doing both.
Is there a discount for doing both?
There is. We take $100 off the closing fee on both sides.
That's awesome.
So it's a $100 discount. It's something. There's a lot more work involved with the dual-sided closing, but
yeah,
we are able to give a discount off the settlement fee for both the buyer and seller.
Super neat.
Yeah.
And then so back to the remote or pre-signing. Melissa asked if a pre-signing fee is normal now. And I would say yes. I would imagine every title company is charging something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that all title companies are charging a pre-sign fee, just to be honest with you. It is basically a trip charge for the notary. Okay, so the notary, yeah, it's more money. Right. So it is basically, the notary has to go to basically 2 closings now. So the notary has to go to the pre-sign, and then typically, now I guess not always, the notary also goes to the actual closing to make sure that, if there's some other documents that are missed, or if something comes up, that they're there to resolve the issue, make sure the closing goes forward. So it's more of a notary fee on it, because of the 2 separate in the time involved with conducting a pre-sign.
I like it.
Yeah.
So I kind of went off track on what you were going to talk about. So you covered owner's policy, lender's policy, and then there was a next one you were going to talk about.
Oh yeah, I was just going to talk briefly a little bit about the closing process.
Yeah.
And what a title company does on a daily basis. To just kind of help you better understand, how we work, I guess. So once we get the purchase agreement emailed over, usually, and again, more information the better, we open up a new file. And if we're representing the buy side, that's when we do the title research. So we do the title research, we look back to the required amount of time, depending on the situation. Sometimes, again, it's a 40-year search. We're doing all this research in-house, like I said. And so, if something unexpected does come up in the title, we have to know how to fix it quickly. And that's a big thing, because unexpected issues do arise. once that title commitment is prepared, we send that out to all the parties involved. Usually the seller's title company, the lender. We typically will send it to agents as well. We don't expect really the agents to, and this may be something good that we could do on a future mastermind, where I could go through a title commitment.
Perfect.
And kind of, and kind of just show you guys quickly how to read one, because it's not all that intuitive. It's a little cumbersome on how title commitments are prepared. Again, it is a commitment for an insurance policy, so it's a bit technical. And we don't expect all agents to, thoroughly go through a title commitment, understand everything that's in there. That's what we do. That's our job. But it would be good for agents just to kind of have a brief understanding of, how to read a title commitment. So once that title commitment is prepared, we send that off, most importantly, to the seller's title company, because they're the ones now that have to clear any of the title objections that we put forth in the commitment, in the title commitment. Okay, so again, that's getting deeds signed, that's getting payoffs, that's clearing taxes, that's assessments. We also run plat maps on the property to make sure that there is no sort of encroachment on the property, meaning that someone's part of their house isn't over the lot lines for the real estate. That's included as well. And also make sure there's access to the property, meaning that you don't have to go over someone else's land to get to the real estate. So, and those are included with the title commitments as well. So once those commitments are done and it's out to all parties, then we're basically looking at, scheduling the closing. And as we talked about briefly, the scheduling has gotten a lot easier with the pre-signing, because we've opened up so much more flexibility for both buyers and sellers. So we do like to schedule closings early. We like to get closings scheduled sooner rather than later. And if something comes up, and sometimes I guess more lenders are a little reluctant to schedule so soon, because they've got things up in the air and they're waiting on this and waiting on that. They don't really want to commit to a date sometimes, but we can always reschedule the closing. But we like to get something on the books and just holding a time slot. So we're working on scheduling pretty early in the process. So once the closing is scheduled, we'll send out a closing notice, and then basically at that time we're working with the lenders at that time, and we're getting the lenders all the documents that they need. They need, closing protection letters. They need wire instructions. Sometimes they'll be adjusting loan amounts, and they'll need updated commitments to show the correct loan amount. So there's a lot of back and forth and communication at this time between the title company and the lender. And so once the lender, and a lot of emails, and we're really good with emails. We're quick to get back on emails and phones and texts. We really try hard to get back to our clients quickly. And so that's what our closers and processors are doing on a daily basis, really, is answering emails, answering requests, revising documents, and just making sure that everyone's, up to speed. So once the loan is approved and fully underwritten, then the lender will send us the closing instructions. Okay, and that's what we need in order to produce the final numbers. We get a lot of calls. We get a lot of calls about, hey, my buyer needs to know how much the cashier's check should be for. We're closing in 2 days, and the title company, not just us, but all title companies, their hands are tied by the lender. And we're getting close to closing, and my buyer doesn't know how much to bring in. Well, we don't have the closing instructions from the lender yet, so we don't know the exact amount. We can give an estimate or something like that, or sometimes we'll tell them to go $1,000 over or something, and we'll cut a refund back at the table. But a lot of times we're waiting on the lenders to get us that information so we can produce a final number. You know, in all respect to the lenders do have a lot going on. I mean, they're the ones bringing the money to the table. You know, sometimes clients aren't getting back to them as quickly as possible. So sometimes it does come down to the last, you know, day or so. And
Yeah.
I know everyone wants to avoid that. We try our hardest to avoid that. You know, some lenders are better than others. I get that too. But, you know, keep in mind the lenders do have a lot of requirements and a lot of stuff going on as well. So sometimes it just comes down to the last minute, but it always seems to work out.
It's the game we signed up for.
Right. And I know agents, and they want to keep clients happy, and no one understands what's going on. And it's hard. It's hard. And I know you guys are in the middle because it's, you know, it's your client and you're the one, you know, getting all the questions, and you want to keep everyone happy, and you're relying on, you know, other people to do their job too. So I know it can be challenging, but that's why we're unable to issue a final closing number, is because we don't have the instructions from the lender at that time. So once we get those, then we are balancing with the lender, and we're setting up the closing disclosure in our software, and we balance with the lender to make sure we all come to the same bottom line and we all agree on everything. And that's between the title company and the lender. And sometimes there's quite a bit of back and forth on that. You know, we're doing closing costs and appraisals, and appraisals already been paid for, and credit reports, and you know, escrows and recording fees and agent fees and things like that. And sometimes it's changing. You know, there's it's changing all the time.
You know,
it's a process.
Every agent is different. Every brokerage is different. I mean, I am so glad that I do not have to do what you guys do, because it would be not good.
Yeah.
Prorated taxes. I mean, could you imagine? Like, I'm sure you have a process for it, but
those all change. Yeah, a lot of that can change by day. You know, if we're closing on the 8th versus the 9th, well, the prorations now just changed. And escrows could change, and prepaid interest could change. And then you're back and forth balancing with the lender on that. And so
it's a process.
It is a process.
Worth every penny to have experts doing all of that back end work. I mean, it's just a big deal.
Yeah.
It's just a big deal.
And there's just a lot of people involved in these closings.
Yeah.
You know, and when you have so many people involved, there's just room for miscommunication, I guess, you know, that can happen. You know, you've got agents, you got buyers, sellers, you know, buyer, seller title companies, you know, HOI insurance agents, appraiser. I mean, the list just goes on, you know, and they got a lot of people with their hands in the pot. And so it's good. It's very important to have good partners, you know, to make sure that process goes smoothly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, once the closing disclosure is issued, we have the bottom line, everything's balanced with the lender. Now we're ready for closing. Buyers come in, sign the documents, you know, usually we set aside an hour for a closing. A lot of times we can get it done quickly, especially with these sellers now pre-signing. That also speeds up the process a little bit. But buyers still, you know, they're still signing, you know, a stack of papers, 100 pages probably, in most cases. A lot of times it's quickly, there's just a lot of disclosures by the lender, but the real important parts are really basically, you know, the closing disclosure, which shows the closing costs and the bottom line, and then the promissory note, you know, which shows, you know, their interest rate, their loan amount, you know, when the payments are due, obviously the loan payment information, the mortgage, you know, that's a lien. You're giving this lender a lien on the mortgage, or on the real estate, I should say. That gives the lender security for the loan. But then the rest of it is, you know, a lot of disclosures, that we can run through pretty quickly.
That's awesome. I think so. We have time for one more question.
Okay.
Lizzie, and then I want to make sure that we get all of your information to everybody. So.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Lizzie.
Okay. The point that I would like to make is how valuable the title insurance process is, and also the fact that if you have something like foreclosures, divorce, early on, it's a good idea to get your seller to agree that you should go ahead and proceed with an owner's policy kind of search right at the outside. So I often get people to agree. I always have them check, of course, where they want the closing and that we are in charge of the closing so that we can make sure we coordinate everything. But it's important to get that early search on the chain of title, especially in those kind of cases like probate. You mentioned the case, for instance, of the person that didn't know that there was someone who could sort of come out of the woods and make a claim or something like that. So the quicker we get one of those owner's searches going, the better off we are on a clear, quick closing. And then the other point I'd like to make is that as an agent, we should always go to the closing, of course. And then the other thing is we need to be there because a lot of times the explanations are given and we hear them and understand them. But in the heat of the moment, your buyers and sellers are just all about getting it done, getting it done, getting it done. And they may not pay as close attention. So it's a good idea that we've already reviewed the closing statement, that we already are prepared to explain if something looks a little higher or a little different or a little bit off. And that's why it's important that our good relationships with you guys is there to help us be able to bring all of that information together in a better way at that closing or prior to it. And then it also protects our own interests because, of course, we've done all this work and we've waited, and we want to make sure that everybody is fairly compensated.
I like it. That's
great points, Lizzie. I agree with everything you said, 100%.
Yeah, especially with listings. That's a super good point to get it over to title, to get everything buttoned up as soon as possible. There's going to be a closing at some point, so you might as well get them started on the background of the house that you're selling.
More time, the better.
Yeah, just to make it super clean.
Yep. A lot of times the title arc is clean. You know, it's exactly the way the seller expected it. But in certain cases, it's not exactly how the seller had expected it. You know, they had a mortgage back in 2005 that was paid off, but that lien was never released. We see that all the time. And the seller's like, what do you mean there's a lien on my property? That was paid off 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Well, it was paid off. Everyone's acknowledging there's no money owed, but the lien release was never filed with the county. So the buyer isn't going to take title that way. So it needs to be cleared up now. And we see that all the time. And so, and sometimes those are difficult to locate. You know, that lender's out of business now. It's 10 years old, and you know, they were assumed by someone else or bought out or whatnot. And it's, I mean, we're really good at hunting those old lien releases down. I mean, I feel like we're really good at that. We have a lot of the tricks and trades that are needed to hunt that stuff down, but sometimes it takes time. And sometimes it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. And there's always a way to get it done, but sometimes it can take some time, you know. But we're really good at hunting those old liens down, and that's common, and that happens a lot. And that lien now, like I said, everyone agrees it's been paid off. That's what sellers freak out about right away is, well, I don't owe any. No, you don't owe any money. It's just getting the lien off of the title.
Yep.
That's all it is. And the buyer is demanding that gets done. They're not going to close until that lien is off the title. And the only way to do that is to get an original lien release from an entity that was in control of that mortgage.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you so much, Jamie, for taking the time. I know it's super valuable, and I know you're super busy, so definitely
Absolutely.
appreciate it. One of the first questions Miss Madrid had was, how to make closing super easy, not just for everybody, but for Guardian Title, in regards to your processes. So I'm hoping my team is doing it correctly in basically connecting everybody involved, getting Ashley the purchase agreement. And then I think a big thing too, guys, is like your job doesn't end there. If Ashley needs something or Jamie needs something, sellers information, sellers whatever. I've had it where they need information on not my client, the buyer, but the seller's information. So getting a hold of the agent to make sure that they're in correspondence with the title company is a big deal to make it smooth for everybody.
Absolutely. And again, the more information, the better.
Yep.
If you can provide when you send us over, like Neil said, contact information for all parties involved. And basically for the title company, it's buyer, seller, contact info for your client, whoever you're representing. And then the other title company info is important. Who the buyer or seller are using, depending on what other side they're on. Lender, at least contact info, email or something. But contact information for all parties involved is super helpful for any title company.
Yep, for sure.
Absolutely.
So very good questions, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Wayne, did you have something?
Yeah, Jamie, do you have a standard info sheet, like a regular info sheet that everybody uses to provide the information to you?
We do. Usually we are using, we are provided those, a closing worksheet. I can definitely send you one that would have all the information on it that you might need.
Okay, that would be great. I'd appreciate it. Can you send it to the company?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, we'll get it to everybody.
Want me to send it to Neil and then we can get that out?
Neil's the leader here. Have him send it to him, and he'll make sure we all us working ants get it.
Awesome. And then Ray Lynn, if you want to post in the NRG group,
Sure.
Jamie, whose information would you want in there for you guys?
Well, typically most of the processing is with Ashley and Stephanie. I mean, Perfect. They're the ones that kind of open up the orders. I'm involved as well on a daily basis. I'm here every day, but I think Stephanie's contact info would probably be the best, although I'm also available should anything come up. So you want me to post some contact info in the NRG Facebook group?
Yeah, if you have access to that group, for sure.
Okay.
Are you in there?
Yes, we are.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. What I would do is describe what goes where so that agents know, not sending PAs to Jamie, et cetera. Just make it.
Although if that was the case, it'd be fine, but.
I know, I'm just saying.
Yep.
Just make it easier for.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
So I can email out my contact info to you, Neil. I know you have it too, but if you want me to send it to the group, I can certainly
do that for sure. Post it in the master or the NRG Agent Connect, and then Ray Lynn can send an email as well.
Okay.
I think that would be awesome. And I've had nothing but amazing experience with Guardian Title over the years. It's just been an amazing partnership for sure. So
we appreciate that. We try hard and we want to make sure that we provide the best service we can for you guys. So we appreciate you as well, and we're looking forward to a continued relationship with with everyone in NRG.
That's right.
And so,
Perfect.
yeah, anything comes up, by all means, reach out. There's no dumb questions. We can,
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming. Hopefully that was super helpful. It was for me. And I will see you next week. I think we're going to do some NLP stuff next week. So I'm super excited for that. Reach out to me if you guys have any questions. Thanks, guys. See ya.
have a great 4th, everybody.
Yes, you guys too.
thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Bye-bye.
Thank you.